MI5.
Before the break, we asked the hairdryer, stapler and neon lighting were all invented in which country? And the answer is C, France.
Welcome to the final part of the show with Carol and Dan, and one of Liverpool's finest, Pete Price, is also here with us. Hi, Pete!
Oh, there you are again.
Lovely, and you're reading the paper that you write in, we should say. How wonderful.
Yes, why not? Why not? On a beautiful programme like this. My column goes out on a Thursday, and I just nipped out to get the papers so I could be here with you.
Thank you. And I gather that today Liverpool Echo and Liverpool Live, which you broadcast on, are really talking about just being able to get back out and about. Is that right?
Jeremy, I cannot tell you what it was like yesterday. I went out early in the morning and I went all round the Wirral and all round Liverpool, and I had the most ridiculous smile on my face. And what made me laugh more than anything was the queues for the shops. One queue it's got to be quarter of a mile to get clothes. I'm sorry, I've been in lockdown. I've got wardrobes full of clothes. What are you supposed to do with new clothes? But we had a drink in a pub outside. It was a bit cold, but the atmosphere was alive and everybody is buzzing. We must not go into another lockdown.
No, we mustn't. I saw reports of and we talked about this earlier, Carol, that Primark was the one with, quarter of a mile queues all over the country because they didn't have an online operation.
Yeah, I mean, I saw that too. It's interesting. I had to go to a big department store called Bentley's yesterday, believe it or not, to return a jacket I bought for my husband at Christmas. And it was about 11 o'clock in the morning, and it was there were people there, but it wasn't crammed to the gills. And, the staff was saying, they expected it to be later in the day. But I would have thought, with a store like that, which is full of stuff that I want to buy, that there would be more people there, and there wasn't. So maybe, I don't know, I mean, Liverpool was obviously the place to be yesterday, but it is a joy to have things back open again. I haven't been to a pub yet, but trust me, I'm going soon.
We've talked a lot about the death of Prince Philip on the show, and you met him, Pete.
I did indeed, and he was hysterical. I met him in 1980, first of all, when I was at a Water Rats ball when Henry Cooper was King Rat and Cary Grant was there. And the gentleman was a bit cheeky then, but I met him in Liverpool. He was at a lunch, and somebody must have told him I was a comic. And please, no gags. And he said to me, "I believe you're a comic." So I said, yes. He said, "Are you the turn after lunch?" He went, "No." And I said, "By the way, I'm on the wrong side. I wanted to meet your wife." He went, "Oh, you're very droll, aren't you?"
There's so many Prince Philip stories. I mean, Radio 2 had a kind of Chelsea Flower Show thing, and I had a stall there, and he came up to look at it, and he said, "It's the sensory." He said, "What is the point of a garden on the radio?" So while I was looking for the answer, he then just walked away and walked into the Bosch Power Tools tent. And we just heard him revving all the power tools. Fantastic. But there's interesting things going on at the moment, Dan, which is that the BBC has had more than 100,000 complaints that there's been too much coverage.
Well, one thing we've learned, surely, Jeremy, and you know this better than anybody, about the internet, is it's easy to complain about things, right? So, frankly, I agree. I mean, unless something doesn't get 100,000 somethings, it's nothing nowadays. I think lots of people don't want to see wall-to-wall coverage of all this. That's fine. Makes sense. But other people want to watch it. I mean, what are you going to do? Who would be the BBC?
They can't. They always get punished whatever they do. But I suppose the problem is once you put it on every channel, Carol, then people who don't want it have got nowhere to go.
I think it's true. I think as human beings, because of the internet age, because of social media, I think people are less able to consume huge amounts of information at any one time. We live our life in sound bites now. And yes, I think there has been blanket coverage. I don't know how much more I can read about his life. But the thing is, I'm learning things about him now that I didn't know. And I've been a journalist for a long time. And I'm learning things about the man. And I think, this is a big event. I mean, we know it happened on Friday, and I mean, in my newspaper, every story was just thrown out the window. I think it's wrong if we're still doing that 3 days later. But I also want, I want to see people and media balance everything with respect. I think this is a man who, I think we took him for granted slightly. I think we're only now realising the stuff he did. And that's what this blanket coverage has done. It has put facts in front of us that many of us either didn't know or may have already forgotten. But I think we have to afford the man huge respect. He deserves it. And, we will all miss him. He's one of those people I think we took for granted. The assumption was he'd always be there. And now he's not. And there is a void, not just in the Queen's life, but in the nation's life.
There's a complaint about the BAFTAs being too woke because they keep missing out Call the Midwife, Pete. Have you seen this?
No, I didn't see that.
What do you think about this, Dan?
Do you know what? Every time I don't get a prize, it's going to be somebody else's fault. I tell you what, everything's too woke. There's too. I mean, I love Call the Midwife, but to be in it and say we're the best, we're not getting a prize because the BAFTAs are too woke. I mean, it's like, what are you talking about? It's like, you know what? I'd be the richest guy on earth if everyone wasn't so prejudiced against me. What do you want to say? I mean, prizes are ridiculous. I've sat on prize juries. You've sat on prize juries. You sit there. You got an hour to decide. Someone in the corner's banging on about some show. You go, whatever. Let's give it to this person. You know what? Don't worry about it. Don't worry about the BAFTA. Easy come, easy go. You're on TV. You've got a multi-million-dollar series famous throughout the world. Don't freak it. Don't sweat it.
I don't know. I love the fact that the actors, and Helen George is one of the actors saying this. Actors and actresses tend to be quite woke anyway. So the fact that they're saying that the BAFTAs are too woke, Storm, is quite interesting.
It is quite interesting. I actually think she used the wrong word. I don't think she meant woke. I think Call the Midwife is meant to be a great show. I actually never watched it because I think it's too edgy for me. Childbirth.
Too edgy?
Well, she's saying that. She's saying that Call the Midwife isn't edgy enough, but you tell me what's more edgy than Childbirth.
Oh, I see.
And I'll give you a prize. I can't watch that show without putting my hands up to my face. But absolutely adored across the country. I think the problem with Call the Midwife is that people like it and they've liked it consistently for a decade now, but it's never had that spike that something like Broadchurch had, where everybody was talking about it for a certain period, and that's what Call the Midwife has suffered from. It's nothing to do with BAFTA being too woke. If anything, actually, BAFTA might have been criticised in the past for not being woke enough.
Pete, in the mail, you've got a thing about going grey gracefully. What's this?
Well, it's an insult to ladies. It's slagging ladies off that embrace their natural colour. I mean, I'm a grey gay man, so I don't know where this leaves me, this article. I think it's an absolute insult. It's made me really angry, this story, because women and ladies have discovered now their natural colour because they haven't been able to go to hairdressers. And I think they look gorgeous as they are. I think people play around with their faces too much, with their hair too much. I'm sick to death of having the here and these lifted and that lifted and that lifted. It's stupid. I think it's wrong. And it's great that they've embraced this through lockdown, and it doesn't alter their intelligence at all.
Well, the story is about them, feeling that when they let their natural hair colour show through, Carol, the boss looks through them, people ignore them, etc.
Well, I don't know whether the boss looks through them, but I now have 5 inches of grey growth. My hairdressing appointment is tomorrow, and you could not keep me away from that salon with wild horses. I hate my grey hair. It's a reminder of how old I am. And I get what Pete says, if women want to embrace it, let them embrace it. I don't know a single one of my friends who wants to be grey. I don't know that many people who look fantastic. I think if you're a supermodel in the 60s and you're a size 10, you've got incredible hair, and you go grey, well, that's fine. But most of us don't look like that. Most of us need whatever help we can get. And in my case, it's a lot of bleach and a lot of tints.
Yeah, there we go, Pete. That's you told.
No, but I love that lady. She looks good anyway. She's a classy lady, so it doesn't matter if she's grey or what.
Dan, in The Guardian, UK and EU edging closer to the deal on Brexit checks. I remember you saying, this is eons ago on this show, you said, well, no one's realised that we've got a land border with the EU in Ireland. And it was a bit of a wake up for me, actually, when you said that. That was about 3 years ago.
Is that an impression? That's your impression of me.
Yeah, well, I'm afraid I just I do your dad when I'm doing you. That's the thing.
I'm becoming my dad. There's little grey hair as well. Yeah, I mean, I think they're reaching a deal. There will be a deal eventually, and it will cost billions more, and it will rumble on, and it will distract our leaders from actually doing things that will make our lives better. But I mean, part of the problem strikes me as doing a deal is at the moment Boris Johnson has denied his own deal. Like he said, there isn't a border. But, I mean, it's just Trumpian. It's Trumpian. So Boris Johnson tanked Theresa May's government by saying that Northern Ireland was an unacceptable risk to the Union, that Northern Ireland might be placed outside this sort of trading envelope. Then went back, got his oven-ready deal by doing exactly the thing he torpedoed Theresa May's government for doing, and then went around, as we all remember that famous time when he was holding that drink in Northern Ireland, goes, there is no border between Belfast and Liverpool. If anyone, they must throw it all in the bin, that paperwork. And then he whipped his MPs to vote for the thing he just said didn't exist. So, I mean, we are obviously going to get to some sort of deal, and it will probably look a bit like the deal that Boris Johnson has already negotiated and then won a massive majority by saying he had negotiated and got an oven ready. I mean, it's just, like, it's Kafkaesque, it's mad. But anyway, so I hope we do get a deal, obviously, because it's so sad to see people in Northern Ireland, unrest in Northern Ireland. Not that it's just related to Brexit, but I mean, that hasn't helped, obviously. But we need to be really, really careful.
You've got, Carol, the story about Greta Thunberg talking about the laughing tears emoji, which we all seem to use the whole time.
Yeah, she says that she laughs with exasperation at the absurdity of the threat of climate change, and she had chosen the laughing face with tears in its eyes when asked about the best emoji to describe the threat from emissions. Well, I'm glad she's found something to laugh about. She doesn't look like a girl who has a lot of laughs. I mean, I saw a bit of the documentary on telly with her last night, and you know what? That girl looks like she's got the weight of the world on her shoulders. She wasn't laughing at all during that documentary. And every time I look at her, and I don't doubt for a second she's doing incredible work, but every time I look at her, her forehead is creased. She looks like she's carrying the weight of the world on her shoulders. And I just feel it's such a shame that Greta Thunberg never really got a childhood. Her father on that documentary was saying last night, I have said to her, she can walk away from this anytime she wants. Well, how can she when the world's expectations are on her tiny little shoulders? And she just looks like a very unhappy girl to me.
And bizarrely, Pete, the University of Winchester has put a statue up to this young girl who's Greta Thunberg herself has said, I don't know why they've done it.
No pressure on her. No pressure. I agree with Carol. I mean, she's got the weight of the world on her shoulders. And I think it's sad and wonder how she's going to grow up and how she'll hopefully get married and have children. I don't know how. I don't think young people realise, because they walk away. They'll say, yes, she's great, and then walk away and leave her with this pain. But to put a statue up, I'm sorry, it doesn't comprehend to me.
Yeah, I mean, wish her all the best. If she goes, terrible phrase, goes out of fashion, Storm, with the whole of her life to come.
I've got a funny feeling Greta Thunberg doesn't really care about fashion or whether she's in fashion or out of fashion. She's got a focus, she's got a goal, and she's talking about it and going for it. I think she's got quite a good sense of humour. Remember, she was called Sharon. She changed her name to Sharon. Every time Trump said something, she'd write it on Twitter. I think she had a good sense of humour about what was going on.
I'll just mention in passing the Daily Telegraph story that says there's no such thing as comfort eating, that there was the idea that if you're put under pressure, your body cries out for food, and that's why a lot of people, when they're under stress, get larger. The study suggests that's absolute nonsense, just an excuse. Storm, in the Star, what?
Oh, we're under threat from gnomes. There's a gnome invasion. Basically, the sales of gnomes have went up 20% in the last year. Actually, just the amount we spend in our gardens has doubled in the last year. Obviously, because we haven't been able to go out, we've reclaimed our spaces again, and we're trying to doll them up and do them the best that we can, which is, I think, a lovely thing. On average, we've spent £597 each on our gardens, which is a huge
I'm going
amount.
to say on gnomes.
No, not on gnomes, but gnomes have been a huge feature. Apparently there's 6 million gnomes in our gardens, and actually one of our younger viewers, has sent in a few photos of his gnomes. So I think we can have a look. There's quite a collection.
Oh.
Sunbathing gnomes, weightlifting gnomes, gnomes with a starfish in their hands. What else have we got here? Superstar gnomes, football gnomes, famous gnomes, don't know who that is.
I would worry about them being nicked. You've got gnomes, Pete, haven't you? Oh, look at that! You have.
I have indeed. There he is. And I can't remember where I got him from. No, that was a joke. I didn't steal it, I promise you. It wasn't a drunken night. But he's outside my door to welcome you all. And you're all welcome for a cup of tea.
Lovely. Dan, is there anything on the history guy can tell us about the history of gnomes, where they come from?
I've got absolutely no idea at all, but I do know that in Iceland they've got legal protection, so they're thought to be actually a real thing in Iceland.
The Star illustrates this with the most bizarre gnome photo I've ever seen.
Well, it's a naughty gnome. They became quite popular in the 1970s, but apparently, Jeremy, they originate in Germany in the early 19th century.
Okay, well that's good information. Thank you. That's it for today, I'm afraid. Storm can tell us if we are still broadcasting tomorrow.
We certainly are. I really hope so, because I'll be turning up. So we're going to be joined by broadcaster Nana Acquia and writer Emma Debray. And we will be asking if it is wrong for 6-year-olds to have their hair coloured. It's a debate that's raging online, and some people are arguing that it puts children's health at risk and even sexualises them. But what do you think?
I'm just saying goodbye to our panel, to Carol and Dan, Pete Price, especially in Liverpool. Thank you so much. Thanks to everyone who took part in the show. The conversation continues after the programme on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. Coming up next on 5 is Build a New Life in the Country. We're back, as Storm says, at 9:15 tomorrow. Till then, great to have you with us. Have a great day.